We're always on the lookout for brilliant wildlife questions to feature in our weekly Q&A here at That's Just Wild. If you send us your best wildlife question by email at questions@that'sjustwild.com, a direct message on Instagram or TikTok, or even a comment on one of our posts, you'll be entered for a chance to win a pair of VIP tickets and a goodie bag to my deadly live arena tour. Not only will your question be answered on the pod, but you'll also win tickets to the tour stop nearest to you. To enter, just start your question with the word tickets so we know to include you. And don't forget, you'll need to be following That's Just Wild on whichever platform you send your question. Get your submissions in by the 15th of October to be in with a chance. We will announce the winner on Friday the 17th of October's Q&A episode. Hello and welcome to That's Just Wild with me, Steve Backshall.
Me, Lizzie Daly.
And me, Sarah Roberts.
The podcast all about nature, wildlife, and how I once met a hero monkey mum who was missing her legs, walking on her hands in a handstand with her baby clasped to her chest.
In a handstand?
All I know is that she had lost her feet to a dog attack.
Oh.
And as we watched, she went into a handstand and walked on her hands like a gymnast with her baby clasped to her chest. Most inspiring thing you've ever seen in the natural world.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah,
Species
very cool.
adapt. Have you seen the camera trap footage of the black bear that's
I was
walking on
literally thinking
hands?
of the black bear. Yeah.
No legs, just like absolutely amazing.
I love it. Nature is amazing. And today we're talking about the topic of learning to fly. How did flight, powered flight, evolve in the natural world?
We often, when we think of flight, talk about, you know, the species are obviously around today, but how they do it with feathers or, you know, modified membranes, which I'm sure we'll go into today. But in terms of the history of flight and how it first came about, it's quite fascinating, isn't it? Because we see it across the animal kingdom.
Yeah, absolutely. So without question, powered flight evolved at least in the Carboniferous, 300, maybe 350 million years ago. Some of those are really, really famous. This would be bugs. So it would be mayflies, griffin flies, dragonflies, so lots and lots of different insects that evolved this ability to be able to fly. And it seems that powered flight has evolved through convergent evolution, that is completely different groups developing the ability to fly in different ways independently. And that's at least 4 times, possibly 5 times. So the 4 we've got insect, bats, birds, the pterosaurs that were around at the time of the dinosaurs, and increasingly there is evidence that some of the dinosaurs may have been able to have powered flight as well. So possibly 5 times that flight has evolved. So it must be valuable.
Why did it even start, though?
That's the big question, I guess. You know, anything that has evolved that many times has to have a really good purpose. And I guess flight can allow you to dissipate, to move to a different territory, to get good sources of food that other animals might not be able to access, to find a mate, just to cover a lot of ground is a good thing.
Am I right in thinking in those days, so many million years ago, things were bigger as well? Would the bugs be larger than the bugs that we know now?
Specifically in the Carboniferous, there was a higher percentage of oxygen in the environment than there is now, which enabled certain bugs to get much bigger. So the dragonflies that today would sit in your hand then could have been as long as your arm.
Yes, so I am right when I'm visualising this in my head, and these
Yes.
humongous, like huge beetles the size of my head are flying past and you're dodging dragonflies. And
Yeah.
okay, cool.
It is very cool. But I think the kind of the key question is how it evolved, because a wing is an extraordinary thing. And it's one of the key things that creationists and people who don't believe in evolution turn to is, you know, what's the use of half a wing? How can it be evolved? Could it be possible that from nothing a creature could develop something as perfect as a powered wing?
Mm-hmm. And what I love about what you just asked, Sarah, is I think it really celebrates the diversity that we see in how animals fly because of all those different pressures. You know, it has to be important for them to then energetically invest so much into having something that's modified or a feather or something that's so evolved and so selected for. And so that's where I think we see so many exciting variations and adaptations in different species, which I'm sure we'll go into. But yeah, Sarah, just on that with the massive dragonflies, 70 centimetres wide.
70 centimetres wide.
70.
That's their wingspan.
Yeah, a dragonfly.
Yeah.
up and around 350 million years ago.
Well, seeing how savage a dragonfly is today, that would sit in your hand.
Wait,
imagine one.
Would that mean the mosquitoes would be huge or an equivalent of those as well?
We don't have evidence of huge mosquitoes, but that's not to say they weren't around.
Just
Definitely
tell her
have.
yes. Tell her yes. Yeah.
Yes, there were.
Da, da, da.
So I guess the main idea is how could, by gradual change, a wing have come about? And the first thing that you need to say on that is that there are plenty of bugs today that fly or that travel without any wings at all. Because when you're a small creature, a teeny tiny creature, you can be carried by the wind over big distances. The classic thing would be spiders, which can balloon using a piece of silk and travel across continents and be carried right up into the jet stream. So if you are a teeny tiny bug, then having even the smallest structure on your body that increases your surface area is going to make you better at doing that. If you're something that lives on the surface of the water, having a microscopic burr on your back is going to make it more likely that you'll be driven along or be carried by the wind. And so you can see how over deep time, kind of tiny little imperfections in a bug could lead to something as remarkable as a wing. I have actually got some bugs here to try and show how this process could have happened. So let's start off with some of the most ancient bugs which were around back there in the Carboniferous.
Are these living bugs?
They are, yeah. And I'm going to give one of them to you, Sarah.
Beautiful.
And as I do,
hold
that by
familiar.
the microphone.
You know what that is.
I know what this is, yeah.
And what's that?
Is it not a Madagascan hissing cockroach?
That's exactly right. Can you
I remember
describe
this from the zoo.
that?
They are, I would say, like the size of your palm.
Yeah.
Black, little teeny tiny horns on them, spiky legs, and they hiss.
Yeah.
So that's them pushing air out the side of their bodies, right?
Exactly right, yeah.
So they also have the antennae on the front as well to find their way around.
That's exactly right. Okay, so there are lots of different species of cockroach. That's one that doesn't fly. I'm going to give you one now that does.
No, okay.
So you've
swap.
got...
Hold on, sir.
You've got that
There you
one
go, mate.
there, and this is a sometimes called death's head cockroach.
Their legs are spiky, hey?
And they have got wings. What's the very first thing that you kind of get in difference between the two?
This looks more like a giant version of the miniature cockroaches that you would see if you were like in a hostel or somewhere and you saw them like running around the floor. I say hostel, probably in like a nice hotel room if you're unlucky. It's got wings though. It's got these huge, beautiful, transparent looking.
One of the key things though is just their weight.
Yeah.
So this one here is really hefty. It's got a very, what you would call scleroticized exoskeleton, which is just too heavy for flight. You could, to build wings on this that would make it able to fly, they'd need to be giant. They need to be like albatross wings. Whereas that there is significantly lighter bodied. And that in itself is the first development that any bug would need to be able to fly.
I feel like it's got walking down to a T though. I've not seen the wings come out so much yet.
Yeah, they kind of don't. And in most bugs, those wings will be covered with solid wing cases called elytra. So I've got a beetle here. This is a Pachnoda or fruit beetle. I'm just going to leave that with Sarah.
Just leave it with her all podcast, to be honest. She'll struggle.
My new friend.
Yeah.
Oh, there we
go.
go.
There's the wings. Yeah. So listen, I'm going to give the fruit beetle to you, Lizzie.
Look at that.
Oh, yours is
well
you got it
behaved.
on the eggshell case.
This
What?
is how you hold a beetle.
Why are you not having...
Because I'm far more enjoying the
Beautiful.
comedy moment of seeing that scamper over your hands. Really good job, by the way, Sarah.
Oh,
and there,
hello.
as you saw, the wing cases fluttering forward briefly and the wings opening out. And that is possibly a part of the whole development process, because that was not flight. All it was doing was kind of steering itself. And having a wing that doesn't necessarily have to be powered can be an element of balance or aid in just normal locomotion, which is what the cockroach is doing now. So that's probably the first step in the process of developing a powered wing or as such. Then what you've got there, Lizzie, is I guess a little bit further down the line.
So something you've already nodded to is the protection of the wings that you get with the fruit beetle compared to the wings that you have here with the cockroach, right? So I'm curious, like, actually, in terms of investment and energy and structure, why they would do that, why they would choose to have it, other than the obvious, which is to protect the wings.
That is the reason, pure and simple. Okay. I tell you what, actually, I have got one of our own stag beetles from this country. So this one here is not alive. This is a dead one. And this will show you what is underneath those wings. I mean, you see a fully grown male stag beetle like this, it kind of seems impossible that it could fly. It's so big, so hefty, so heavy. So it's got, much like your beetle there, this elytra, the wing casing that covers the wing, which is...
This is great,
here.
because we're going to be able to actually see.
Yeah, so as they fly, that flips forward into that position there. And then the wings will unfold, and they are gossamer thin.
Wow.
They are so fragile, but they open out into this structure which can carry this really heavy, hefty beetle over big distances through the powered muscles that sit at the base of those wings, which I have just broken. But it's all right because it's dead. So it doesn't matter.
And here's one I'm still holding politely. It's not moving a bit.
Yeah.
Sarah, how are you getting on?
It's throwing me back to the days of having Russian dwarf hamsters. I'm not going to lie. It's quite fast.
In Sarah's previous life.
Okay.
Yeah, so you talked about, powered flight having evolved 4 times, possibly 5 times. But then when you look at the bugs and you look at all the different kinds of wings they have, the different parts of their body they come from, the different ways that they're folded, the fact that so many different kinds of bugs only have wings as an adult and as in their nymph stages will not have wings. Even that there are things like termites and ants that only have wings for a set period of their life. Actually, it seems more likely that this has evolved many, many times throughout the insects. So it's something that has evolved through convergent evolution, who knows, hundreds of times in the natural world.
Yeah. And again, I love, we've just seen 2 different species of cockroach, but you see it in crickets as well. Some are flightless, some have wings. And obviously they are all driven by certain pressures in their particular niche, in their particular environment, which is extraordinary, because some invertebrates, I think it's fair to say, and this is what I was going to ask you guys, are we counting gliding?
I was going to say,
flying?
I don't know.
Some don't really fly, I'd say, more jump or glide.
Flying fish. Do flying fish fly? Do they count or not? Because they go like obscenely fast underwater, and then they take off and they can be huge distances, right? 400 meters that these flying fish can cover at a time, with their pectoral fins basically looking like wings. But does that count as flying?
So from a scientific perspective, no, that is gliding. And there are so many examples of gliding which we're going to talk about here today. Powered flight, they need to be able to take off, they need to be able to keep themselves aloft, usually with beating of the wings, and then they need to be able to land at the end of it. So something where you are just pure and simple gliding is different. But this is where we start getting into the
grey line, though, isn't it?
It really is. And I was saying at the beginning that it's possible that some of the dinosaurs, like Microraptor and Sinornithosaurus, which we've always believed to have been gliders, scientists are kind of starting to question that now and starting to say, well, how can we just say that that's gliding if they are, keeping themselves aloft for longer than they would do if they were just dropping, under the control of gravity and elevation and lift. So the vote is out. I would say when you're watching a flying fish,
it's so cool.
Gliding,
I love watching
it's
them.
not dropping in height. They stay at the same set height, sometimes for hundreds of meters, and then they kind of just drop into the sea, don't they?
Yeah, I'm saying flying.
I've
almost been
Lizzie's
hit
calling it.
Yeah, I've almost been hit by a flying fish, and I'm telling you, it does not glide towards me. It's flying.
Well, when you were saying that as well, because the speeds they reach is like 37 kilometers an hour, but there's also like the blurred line of at what point does gliding start to be gliding, because then you've got needlefish, which technically they're not flying fish at all, but they're related, but they can go, can't they? I mean, they've killed
people. And they're
people.
kind of just jumping, though, aren't they?
Yeah, they're jumping at speed, but in such a precision way, like you say, that they're escaping the water and they're traveling basically like arrows, and they actually hit and kill people.
Yeah.
We were filming in the Riviera archipelago just off the coast of Mexico, and we were at night, and a pod of dolphins started hunting around our boat, and they were quite obviously hunting lots of different kinds of fish, but particularly the flying fish. Ooh. And the flying fish started taking off, and because we didn't have lights on the boat or anything, they were thunking into the boat, and they fly at such speed that when they hit the boat, they kill themselves.
Oh, wow.
So they come thundering into the boat. We're at the back and we're filming, and we're all kind of like, this is the greatest thing ever, because basically dinner is being provided for you at the back of the boat. Thunk, thunk, thunk. And the dolphins are coming in and trying to pluck them off the boat as they're dropping unconscious back into the water.
Awesome.
Yeah, really quite
It does
something.
make you wonder if the dolphins planned that as well.
Of course they did. Of course they did.
Can I jump in and mention the largest, or thought to be largest, land predator that flew? You mentioned the pterosaurs there, Steve. You might have heard it's one that kind of was known for quite some time. The Quetzalcoatlus is a large pterosaur that is thought to be, and I'm talking large, Sarah. It's like the height of a giraffe.
A pterosaur would look like what exactly?
You imagine a large raptor, you know?
Right, okay.
It's
like
essentially got a big membrane. It's got kind of a huge long bill. It's got like a casque like you get on a hornbill. Mm-hmm. It's got a membrane, huge membrane.
So its wings would be more like a bat kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But held in a different part of the hand to a bat.
Yes.
So it's not exactly the same.
Yes.
But it looks kind of similar, but the scale is just vastly different. And this is a reptile as well. This is there's no other connection to the bats other than that.
So the size of a giraffe, you're saying?
The size of a giraffe, Sarah. Huge long neck, really strong head, and we'll come back onto that. The reason I mention that is because everyone thinks that was the largest flying vertebrate for a long time. And then in the 1970s, a student in Romania found this huge humerus of a different species called the Hatzegopteryx. And that's actually slightly larger again.
What?
So similar size, but probably adding on another like 5%. I mean, that's completely a number plucked out, but it's as large. It's the size of a giraffe. They're able to sustain flight. They are largely land dwelling, so they'll be moving around, scavenging and feeding off pretty much anything they can, they think, but they are able to use flight to travel distances.
So
around.
they would have to flap, right? They're not going to
yes.
drop out from a tree and then...
Well, in all likelihood, they probably would have, like modern vultures and other, really, really big birds have chosen to have roosts and nests high up so that they would be able to drop out and use gravity to get lift. So taking off from the ground would be really hard. That's not to say that they wouldn't do it ever, but they need to propel themselves up into the air.
Yeah.
We did Hatzegopteryx and Quetzalcoatlus as part of a series that I did.
Cool.
And worked out that in terms of dimensions, their wingspan was the same as a Spitfire, which we used as a way, as a kind of reason for me to get to fly in a Spitfire, which was pretty awesome.
You wangled that entire series for that, didn't you?
Oh, do you know one of the most amazing things about it was as well, because we got it for the whole day. I got my dad to come down and fly in a Spitfire, and my dad, obviously he's a World War II baby, and just even hearing the sound of the Spitfire as the engine. I mean, I'm not a tech freak at all. I'm not someone who's into machinery, but it made me want to cry.
Yeah.
So seeing my dad in floods of tears as I set him up in a Spitfire. But anyway, that is the way that you can get in your mind's eye quite how big the wingspan was of these pterosaurs. It was insane.
Yeah, and we talked earlier about weight and the importance of kind of balancing what you invest in as an animal. With a skull that's 2.5 meters long, right? How on earth is an animal that size going to get up into the air? And a large part of that is actually to do with the anatomy and the structure of skulls. So lots of skulls in birds and bones are pitted.
Got holes in, right?
Yeah, they have like these honeycomb structures, which allows it still to maintain its structure, but to have the kind of lightweight element that it needs to kind of get aloft. But just the thought of a giraffe-sized flying reptile some 66 million years ago blows my mind and is brilliant. Bring them back, I say.
For ad-free listening, our newsletters, special deep dive episodes and members-only benefits, you can subscribe to us at that'sjustwild.com.
Well, so listen, we're talking a bit about this particular kind of powered flight, connecting the pterosaurs to animals that are around today. So the pterosaurs would have had their wing membrane suspended from their fourth finger. The animals that are around today that probably are the closest would be the bats.
Yes.
So should we get a look at one?
An actual bat.
An actual bat.
Bring in the
Fruit
bat. Not a sentence I thought I'd say today.
So this is one of my very best friends in the whole world.
The bat.
Oh, bless you.
This is Animal Mark.
Hi, Mark.
And Animal Mark and I have been working together for probably about 20 years now.
I know, it's terrible, isn't it?
And Mark, what have you got there for us?
This is an Egyptian fruit bat.
Wow, beautiful.
And that describes your membrane lovely.
Wow.
So the difference from the pterosaur that I was talking about earlier on is that the bat essentially has a membrane between all of its fingers. So that's what you're seeing there is a hand. You know, it's a mammalian hand.
The little claw bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can see the digits there. The joints of those digits are the same that we have. And this is the animal, the only truly flying mammal that is kind of most closely related to us as humans. You know, beneath that fur and you know the stretchy membrane, they are remarkably similar to us.
It's funny that we have an Egyptian fruit bat here today because actually talking about learning to fly, there's been a study recently at Tel Aviv University where they attached GPS trackers onto the mum and the pups, and they figured out how they do it. And so they, instead of like some of the really scary push them off a cliff and hope for the best kind of teaching a bird how to fly situations, the mum bats, they take the pups and they drop them at nursery trees just on the edge of the cave. So they'll fly out, they'll chuck the little pup onto a tree, go off, forage, come back, get the pup, and then go back into the cave. And it's part of the way that almost like the bat goes to school. It starts to learn its local area and learns to fly. And then when they get to about 10 weeks, they take themselves to the little nursery tree. So it's like they walk themselves to school, and then the mum goes out and hunts, and then they join them back in the caves. So it's like a really cute, slow process.
So we were talking earlier on about taking off is the part of flight that requires the most energy because you're battling gravity in the most profound way, and saying how very heavy-bodied birds like vultures will get themselves up nice and high. They'll roost on a high cliff face and just drop themselves out, spread their wings to get aloft. And it's very much the same with fruit bats.
You can feel that the
power
wind.
Yeah.
A wind hitting.
Yeah.
It's like having a fan next to me.
So have you guys been to fruit bat roosts?
I've seen them in Australia, the huge fruit bats that popping down.
No,
from
the one place I'd love to go is Kasanka. I think you've been there, right, with the stork.
That's where I got
coloured.
malaria.
Yeah,
Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, there's
that is the dream.
10 million fruit bats at once.
Yeah.
But the thing is that they will roost in a tree that is going to be relatively close to the fruiting trees that they feed on, and they roost hanging upside down. And they hang upside down from those back feet, from the little claws on the end of them. Remarkably, those claws, when they relax, they close up. Ours do the opposite, so they're not using any energy to hang in place. And they can hang from just the claw on one single toe. So thus, when they want to take off, they just drop, they just release.
Brilliant.
Let go, few flaps, and they are aloft.
Brilliant.
So that's why this little guy is so happy upside down when you're holding him.
Yeah, so I've had to hand rear a couple of babies. You have to feed them upside down.
Oh, really?
That's the way their digestive system
So they
works.
swallow.
Brilliant.
upside down,
Look at
like
that
against the
wingspan.
Yeah.
I
Brilliant.
do think they're
Thank
super
you.
cute, actually. I know some people don't think they're cute. I think bats are up there as one of my cutest.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the fruit bats particularly, because they don't echolocate, most of them, in as profound a way as insectivorous bats do. They don't have the accoutrements that echolocating bats need. So quite often they'll have massive nose leafs or enormous oversized ears, and those can look really ugly. I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
they can
I
get
don't
ugly.
care who you are, but the fruit bats, they kind of look like a possum, or
Yeah.
you know, they have
Fox or
that
something,
really
yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks,
Thank you
Mark.
very much, Mark.
That was great.
So bats are the only true flying mammals, but there are other mammals that can glide.
Absolutely, yes. So the ability to glide carries with it many of the benefits of powered flight. So you can move from one area to another relatively easily. You can get to new food sources. You can find a mate. You can disperse over a bigger area, but carries with it less expenditure of energy. And it has got a bit of a sense of how flight in mammals or some other groups might have evolved. Let's say you're an animal that jumps. You're a squirrel and you jump from one tree to another tree. Well, just having a slightly bushier tail is going to make that jump more controllable.
Totally, yeah.
Just having a teeny, teeny, tiny membrane that extends for no more than a few millimeters is going to make that jump easier to steer. And as that gets bigger, and you get things like the colugo, which is sometimes called a flying lemur, it's not, but that's probably the one that has the biggest patagium. It's not far off flight what they're doing. They travel an enormous distance using gliding. And if you go somewhere like Borneo, there are so many different animal groups that have evolved that ability.
Yeah, so I was in Sabah in Borneo, and we went out for kind of a night filming or whatever it was, and we looked up into the canopy, into the pterocarp trees, and there we saw a red giant flying squirrel. And I traced this squirrel, it must have been about 50 metres across the canopy, starting super high with a big spotlight. And I actually, you're not supposed to produce sound, any time around animals, but especially not on a frigging night safari. And there I was, I actually screamed. I couldn't believe it. It was the most magical thing I've ever seen.
Did you scream, Lizzie, or did you go, whee?
That was inside my head, definitely. But honestly, it was the most impressive what looked like flight because of how far they were able to travel using that amazing membrane that they've got.
Well, now you're on the subject of flying squirrels, I wanted to share with you a different story as well, because it's slightly more morbid and it's not quite as inducing. But in Laos at the wet markets in 2012, they discovered a new species never seen before of Laotian giant flying squirrel, and it was the only specimen at the time.
But it wasn't a known species.
It wasn't known. It was by a master's student who was going around the wet markets and surveying to see what they could see, and they found this giant flying squirrel. I think there's only one other type of giant flying squirrel in the area. This was a totally new species. And when they went back to do more checks, so first off, they discovered it, got really excited, a bit like you, except this was kind of like a dead version. But they didn't know it existed, right? So they got really excited, and they went back and they actually found 10 more specimens of it in the freezer. And this is like one of those really sort of weird situations, because there's that morbid side of it where you're like, oh God, the wet markets, they've killed it. But then also like, oh, these people obviously know where to find this whole new species that we didn't know even existed. And you have that tap of knowledge there that actually maybe you can get out there and protect it and find out more. So it's a really rare thing to find these giant flying squirrels. So
there's clearly something about the forests of Southeast Asia that kind of has led to the evolution of so many different kinds of gliders. Because particularly in Borneo, you've got flying geckos, flying lizards, flying squirrels, flying, in inverted commas, lemurs. You've got flying snakes, flying frogs.
Yeah.
Wait, flying snakes?
Yeah, well, so, obviously...
It sounds like some people's worst nightmare.
Yeah, Chrysopelia paradisi, the paradise flying tree snake, is a snake that looks like any other. They're really pretty, though. They've got lovely colours. But they have the ability to create a kind of concave effect with their ribs, which almost turns into like an aerofoil. And they swim through the sky. And it's incredibly efficient. They don't have any membrane. They don't have any wings, but just from holding their body in a particular way, they swim on the air. It's the most incredible thing to see, and they can glide over tens of meters from the treetops down to the ground. But having all of these different kinds of animals across completely unrelated groups developing the same skill, there must be something about those forests. And I kind of reckon what it is, particularly if you go to Borneo, they have these giant ironwood trees, which are, as tall as redwoods, if not taller. And then the forest floor tends to be fairly bare. There's not an enormous amount there. So most of the food is going to be way up high. Do you want to go to the whole effort of scampering down a 90-metre tall tree to the forest floor, travelling along it, climbing 90 metres up another to get food? Or do you want to glide? And maybe that's why so many different kinds of animals have evolved this same ability. Have you seen Draco lizards? Flying lizards?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Epic.
What? Describe to me. I don't know this one.
Yeah, so Draco lizards are green in colour. They're already quite striking because they've kind of got this bit of a flap that the males have to essentially fight with other males to show off to the females. They kind of are able to flap it out like that, and then it's more of a yellowish colour, if I can remember rightly. But when they launch through the air, they're able to literally create a wing. And
like a
from
wing.
from the ribs.
From the ribs, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like an extended cape, essentially, that they use to fly around the canopy. And it's so effective. You know, we talk about gliding. It's the definition of gliding when they're moving from tree to tree. And again, they're able to escape other males, find better food resources. It's extraordinary as a behaviour.
It's possible that might have a connection to sexual selection as well, because it's very, very brightly coloured when they expand it open.
Yeah.
We filmed them on Komodo Island
Oh, cool.
a few years ago, and the nature of Deadly 60. I don't know if you're aware. I've done a kids
Never
wildlife
heard of
series
it.
for
What
Deadly
do you
60.
want to tell us more?
But the nature of it is that we tend to do 3 animals in a program. So we were there to film Komodo dragons, needed something else, found a Draco lizard in a tree, and so spent a day filming them. And you just imagine there's all these people that have come there there are literal dinosaurs lying around us everywhere, and the crew and I are up a tree trying to film a teeny little lizard. You can see all these tourists thinking, who are those people? What is wrong with them? But they're really difficult to catch. They're super, super scampery. And the second they get wind of the fact that you're trying to catch them, they just turn around and jump and spread this membrane. And they can go 40 metres easy. And they barely seem to be dropping at all. It is phenomenal. Finally, at the end of one day, I had one in my hand, sat on my hand, and it jumped from my hand down about 10 metres onto the top of the camera. And we got it. We got a shot,
yeah.
and I mean the shot is probably like 2 seconds long, but you see this perfect, and it looks like a skydiver. You know, skydivers now that are using those suits to fly, wingsuits.
Base
It looks
jumpers,
just like that.
Yeah, I love that. Speaking of base jumping, sky jumping, all sorts, wonderful species, I do want to go to the redwoods because I don't know if you're aware, there is an amphibian that has no flaps, but it can launch out of redwoods, and it does it in an extraordinary way. So there's this amazing study that was done based on the wandering salamanders of California that live in the coastal redwoods. And you're absolutely right. I mean, these are trees that can go up to like 150 meters. So huge heights. And this salamander is about that big.
So like about 4 inches.
Yeah, really small. It's pretty dull, I'll be honest. Sorry. It's not the most vibrant of all amphibians. But if you put it in a wind tunnel, casual things that scientists do, and you compare it with how it deals with wind and that fall compared to other salamanders, it is an expert sky jumper. It's able to make sure it maneuvers itself upright within, half a second.
When you say a wind tunnel, I'm now envisioning those like indoor skydiving domes.
Literally
is that what
that,
you're talking?
except
wind
a
from
smaller
the floor?
salamander-sized wind tunnel. If you imagine, it's like a big box. And the videos are brilliant because, unfortunately, for the other species, they were like, let's see what they do, and they're all useless. They're like upside down and just like going all over the place. But for the wanderings, not only are they able to upright themselves and put themselves in this like amazing stationary position, but they can maneuver. They can turn left with a foot dip one side and turn right with another foot dip, and they whip around their tail when they want to change direction. It is extraordinary. And the best part is when they land, they actually push blood into the toes, which I know they're not the only species that does this, but it creates almost like a grip so that they can then climb however many meters high they need to get back up into that fern pad, 80 meters, 90 meters up into this tree. It's phenomenal.
Is it possible, as you're describing these animals with the gliding abilities and the falling abilities, if we gave them enough time, would they eventually grow to have proper flight?
That is the question, and it has happened in the birds. So we've all got a feather here right now, and the feather is clearly the key in how birds can fly. It's one of the most remarkable substances in nature, but the feather did not evolve for flight. Birds and many kinds of non-avian dinosaurs had feathers long before flight was a thing, and in all likelihood they evolved for thermoregulation. They evolved for keeping warm or keeping cool. And so you would have had a kind of something like the quill here. Then that would have developed filaments alongside it, and every single extra bit of complication that you get makes it more effective as insulation. And feathers are one of the most effective things for insulation in the world. It's no mistake that we have eiderdowns, right? Because feathers work brilliantly for insulation. So they already had them. They already evolved for a different purpose. And then you've got, some of the early forms of birds that could have had bigger and longer arms, more feathers that were on them. That could have made them more efficient as gliders. And then over time, they would have become more and more lightweight. They lost their teeth in their beaks. The bones would have become hollow on the inside with little structures inside to make them tough but super lightweight. The gliding started to become more and more pronounced. Then the breast muscles would have started to get stronger and more powerful. So even a few beats could have kept them aloft for longer and longer. And over deep time, we're talking well more than 100 million years, that turned into the extraordinary kinds of powered flight that you might see from a chough dancing on the wind on a Cornish cliff top, or from an eagle soaring down at 150 miles an hour to catch a hold of a deer on the ground. And it was never meant to be that way. This is not what that evolved for.
So Tyrannosaurus Rex turned into a robin is what you're telling me there.
I mean, where do I start with that? I mean, one of the amazing things is that Tyrannosaurus would have had feathers.
As pretty as the macaw feathers?
We don't know yet. I mean, we know they had colours to their feathers. Most of them would have been more quill-like, so probably more like what you've got on a modern cassowary or ostrich. And obviously, they were not there for flight. They would probably have been used for display. But your one there that is super bright coloured, that's what that's for. That's got nothing to do with flight. That's all about attracting a mate. That could predate flying.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Absolutely fascinating. But that is all we've got time for today, guys, unfortunately. So remember, there'll be a special Q&A episode on Friday. So please send your questions to questions@that'sjustwild.com and we will get to them.
That's Just Wild is an original Fresh Air production. The producers are Eva Higginbotham and Izzy Clark. Your support is really welcome. You can follow us on your favourite podcast app, leave us a review. It makes all the difference to the whole team. And for ad-free listening, our newsletter, special deep dive episodes and members-only benefits, you can subscribe to us at that'sjustwild.com. Remember, we're on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and you can find us at That's Just Wild Pod.
Thanks for listening. See you next week.